Cetitan is pretty hard to use. Nobody really likes him, but he's actually pretty impressive. He's put in the game to pretty much optimally counter specific Pokemon based on his defense. So if you look at this here, I have diminishing returns. So what happens is as your defense gets higher, you get less back from it. So this sort of is hard to explain, but at level 50, there's a calculation here to calculate damage. Of course, Crabhammer does 44 damage, neutral, and then when you plus 2, it's 88 HP, or 88 damage, and then if you add Stab as well, its neutral is 66, and its Stab boosted plus 2 is 99. Its rain boosted Stab is 99. Any Pokemon with high attack stat like 120, 130 is generally designed to be some sort of wall breaker of some kind, based on if they have a strong enough move, I guess. So Dracovish is a bit of a wall breaker. The good stuff here about defense, and specifically Cetitan, is that if you have like an even attack and an even defense stat, and you multiply that by 44, and then you multiply that by 100 damage base attack, you'll get your 44 damage. So that's your basic Earthquake on even defense split to an even attacker. But as that ratio changes, as a 1.5 boost here, or a 2 times boost, or whatever the ratio increases, you get less back from it. So that's where we come back to this chart here, this right angle chart. As your defense increases, you're getting less of a reward, all right? And as your defense decreases, you're copying more and more damage. The lower your defense is, the higher damage they're putting out, and the higher your defense is, the less damage you're taking. The higher your defense is, the less damage you're mitigating. Which means, back over here, that first 1.5 boost is giving you a 33% reduction. Now that's what's really important here. The second boost is giving you an extra 17% or a 50% reduction on top of the first boost. So this is if you're even attack and even defense split. But the third boost on top of that is only a 10% change, 7% change, 5% change, 3% change, and so forth. So if we go back to a damage calculation here, what that means is if you hit a Steelix, so I've got a Steelix here, 200 defense, 75 HP. I've got it with a Great Tusk, who is just a choice banded adamant attack Great Tusk. That there is going to hit over here for 180-ish HP. That's about what you have. So it's about a one-hit KO, roughly, 50% chance. Now that one-hit KO is based on your defense stat and his attack stat. Now he has a banded attack, but so that sort of makes it a bit confusing. But we're just going to say it's a one-hit KO for this example. This one-hit KO at plus 2 is 50% mitigation. At plus 4 is only another, it's 67% or 60% mitigation, 60 to 70%, right? And then at plus 6, it's 70 to 75% mitigation on the damage, which means that plus 6 to plus 4, it didn't do a lot, but that first plus 0 to plus 2 did heaps. It did 50%, and then that next 0 to plus 1 mitigates plenty as well. So that's where we get back to Cetitan. So this is how to explain how Cetitan sort of works. When we whack in Cetitan here, I picked because he has ultimate HP. So because his HP is so high, his defense stat only needs to hit, again, a ratio of the Pokemon you're trying to counter. So his defense stat in particular is hitting a ratio of, well, actually I'll go back and hit Alamola. Alamola here, I'll even go back here and hit Steelix again. So what you need here is you need to have a base stat of 85. If you have a base stat of 85 at level 50, in your impish, that base stat of 85 should be 150. Now that's important because 150 is a ratio of his 200 base attack. So at 150 plus 2 is a 1.5 ratio. So that is hitting the optimal damage reduction. You're getting a 33% reduction if you're 85 base defense and you're plus 2. That's the maximum damage reduction you'll get. Everything after that will be, it will be good, but it won't have as high as an impact. The highest impact and damage reduction you can have here is this one. And so that's where Alamola comes in. Alamola hits that 80 defense threshold with really high HP. But cetitan almost hits it and has really high HP. So this is where it becomes really interesting. So cetitan is, let's say 252, and let's go 252, level 50, impish, get a calendar calculator. Alright, so we've got 128 times 1.5 is almost 200. So that's what's important here. So you're going to run cetitan with a Ninetales most of the time. You're going to get that snow boost of the 1.5, and that's going to put you at 200 defense, which pretty much evens out for his attack. So you're about neutral on attack and defense ratio. Now, where that becomes important is now you're sitting at a really good number. Let's say you do a curse and become +1 in attack and defense. That's also interesting. So your attack at max attack is 100% damage. It's the maximum damage you can have. But at no investment, you're doing 75% of the maximum damage you can do. So at no investment here, he's doing 75% of his fully invested damage. And he has way more defense like this. So this is how you would run him with the defense boosted and 75% of his normal damage. And while you're running that, you would then have him with a Ninetales, and you'd have an Aurora Veil. That Aurora Veil would then increase his, it would reduce the damage you take. So now you're hitting maximum numbers. So you got, let's say you got, 198 times 1.5, that's your 300 or your 1.5 ratio. So you're getting your 1.5 ratio, which is your maximum damage reduction on the cetitan here. And that maximum damage reduction with the Ninetales Aurora Veil becomes a really resistant. With the Aurora Veil, the snow, the reduction here, you're hitting a Headlong Rush banded from a Great Tusk at 12 to 15%, which is absolutely nothing. And that's just with the Aurora Veil and a Curse boost on your cetitan, and that's it. So that is the ultimate way to counter a damage dealer, because you're hitting them with the maximum amount of resistance for the maximum health that you can have. And that is assuming, because he has quite a lot of health, that is assuming that with the ratios here, you'll have more health and you have less defense. So as your defense gets lower, Pokemon are getting more HP to compensate for the difference. So that's just assuming that like the defense ratio here to HP ratio is balancing out. And it does balance out, because if you get like a Skarmory, for example, wrong one. You get a Skarmory, for example, and you go an Iron Defense Skarmory and you max his defense here and max his HP, he will take, let's say, the close combat for 27 to 33%. And if you get like a Hariyama and then you max his HP and defense. It should be roughly the same, but their defense and HP stats are sort of reversed in a way. So not too far off. Obviously the Skarmory is a bit better, but you get the gist of it. As the HP goes up, the defense goes down and balances out, except if you optimally hit that exact 1.5 ratio threshold, like cetitan does to a Great Tusk, for example, or anyone with about 130 base attack, which is most of the wall breakers in the game, cetitan was actually designed to counter those big wall breakers with his Ice and Aurora Veil. So that is how you run cetitan optimally, and it's just basing his defense stats all the way up and working with your Aurora Veil and the Snow with maybe a curse to get you to that. Again, you're only sitting at 200 defense, which is equal, and you're getting maximum benefit from that one curse, like the most benefit that you can possibly get in the game. And then yeah, with the attack stat here being at 120, it's probably, 150 is a pretty low base attack, but at +1 here, that will fix up the difference and you'll be back to like a max invested attack. cetitan, for example, and moveset wise, you can just run whatever you like, but as far as building him wise, you definitely want to run the max defense in the Snow, max HP, and that is specifically for countering Great Tusks and the likes, banded, powerful Pokemon. Yeah, so that makes him ultimately just a beast. I mean, taking 15% from a Great Tusk here, you could belly drum that off. Well, you could belly drum that off. You could actually run even like a shell. The items you could run are endless. You run a shell bell and probably heal more than you take. Yeah, so he's really, really bulky. Just underestimated, but that's really the concept behind running defense Pokemon, is that hitting, I mean, this 50% threshold here is pretty good, but hitting those big numbers and trying to counter those Pokemon because of your diminishing returns, of course. If I go back to this, you're just getting, 15. So, the difference here between even and even split with a base 100 attack fired off like an earthquake from, like, say, a Garchomp. Let's say a Garchomp hitting somebody with 130 defense, like a Garganical, and Garganical Terrid, so it was sort of like a neutral hit. That neutral hit there would hit for 44 plus the stab, right? So the stab would make it 66, but let's just say it's coming from, say, a Garchomp to Terrid normal as well. Oh, no, yeah, something that's with a 130 base attack but isn't getting that stab earthquake. This is what you're going to get. So as you keep going down here, you can see that that 33% reduction is 15 HP. That next reduction here is 7 HP, 5 HP, 3 HP, 2 HP, and 1 HP. That is 11 HP, which is a fourth of 44. That is half of 44. As you can see, it does work out to be half of half of half, but that half of half of half doesn't scale equally. It scales poorly. So you really want to be sitting at like about 50% here would be ideal, because this first reduction is the maximum reduction, but this 17% is still kind of worth it. This 10% here is kind of where he sort of drops off, and it's not really worth having that extra defense over the rate attack ratio, the defense attack ratio. So as you can see here, the first extra 50 defense is way better than the last 50 defense, because the first 50 defense gives you 15 HP, while the last 50 defense only takes away 1 HP. So that's your diminishing returns, and that's how you run defensive Pokemon like cetitan in Pokemon.